What is up, everybody? We are live. We invite Corona to get on here.
Hello.
What is up, everybody?
How's it going, y'all? Happy hump
How are you
day.
doing?
I'm okay. Quarantine
Hey.
now. Hopefully getting better. Just taking some time off away from the family and kind of helping recenter and all of that. So
So why don't you tell everybody
what was that?
why don't you tell everybody why you're quarantining?
Oh, because I have COVID. I got COVID. I got the bug. Yeah.
Was this the second time?
Yeah, so the first time I was exposed was back in 2020.
Like early.
Yeah, and I think I went a whole year without getting the bug, and then alas, come this weekend, one of my family members messaged me and said that they tested positive. So, um, due to my family having, um, you know, medical issues and stuff, I figured I might as well just get out of the home. So I'm quarantined right now with my family and, just working towards getting better.
Awesome. So, what's today's hot topic?
Today's topic. Remind me, I have a cloudy brain right now. COVID does not help have clarity. I actually,
Providing heart-centered, loving space.
what is it again?
Providing space for people when
Oh,
they're going through shit.
yeah, it's a good topic.
So, recently, I gave a ride to a passenger, and they're from Arizona. And Arizona is very hot, but also it barely ever rains.
Mm-hmm.
So the trees there, they were mentioning to me, and I never knew this part. The tree, the roots don't go underneath the ground.
Stay up top.
They stay on the surface. So they were explaining to me every time it rains, a bunch of trees fall down, but I was imagining the trees breaking in half.
Don't they just tumble over?
They tumble over because of the roots, but I was imagining them breaking in half. Um, so when somebody's going through something that's overwhelming for them,
Mm-hmm.
it's because they don't have a meditation practice, or they don't have something that's prepared them for that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times people want to logically have a conversation with somebody when they're going through, when they want to teach them to swim when they're in the middle of the ocean drowning.
Yeah.
It's not time when you're in the middle of the ocean drowning. It's not time to go onto the internet and take a swim class.
No.
And that sounds pretty obvious,
Yeah.
but that's not what the people are putting out into the world. Recently, I was involved in a intervention for somebody that, and I may have talked about this on several times, but it was a successful coach
Mm-hmm.
who is having mental issues. And I found out that he was going to a lot of restaurants and dining and shining. So I was like, oh, I'll invite him to lunch. I've never sat down and talked with the guy, but we know each other from different places. This guy's never helped me out. I helped out with one of his football players. I referred him to Jerome. And Jerome just happened to be running around the track he happened to be the athlete of the decade at the high school that this guy went to. And he happened to always be running around the track. So I said, I facilitated with this coach for Jerome to go talk to his player. His player was having trouble with grades. Jerome did energy work on him. And then all of a sudden he was able to get back on the field because he was able to focus on his grades. Because a lot of times with that culture of football and culture of a lot of sports, they don't like to deal with the emotional stuff. It's kind of weird because athletics helps you with that, but
Right.
also it's like they shy upon weakness when a lot of that toughness is just covering up your insecurities. And we've all been there on some level. I'm not absent of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm better and better about doing that. So when we get there, people that he's helped out, game changing, were very arrogant towards him. Why are you posting stuff on Facebook? Da, 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 da. Like just like talking to him like this. And we got a guy that's acknowledging he's mentally ill, acknowledging he needs help. When I got there, he made eye contact with me, like firm eye contact with me, which most people, like when they're overwhelmed in situations, can't do that, including me. So I'm like, this is a guy that's had success and is like putting this stuff in front of him, but people want to like go back and forth. And I just said to the people, I was like, hey, it's a cry for help. What he's going right for is a cry for help. And I'm here because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys are here because of that, but he acknowledges the need of help. Let's go. And as soon as I got there, they didn't want me involved in the meeting. And also, when my intuition said, you may have to have all these guys hate you. Like I have no problem being that guy.
Yeah.
So in an hour after some fighting back and forth, we got him to go. Everybody, they were great. Like, even though I had some complaints about them, they were great. They had the facility. They had been talking to his wife. They had the clothes for him. They had like all that stuff lined up. They knew which place to go. They had all of it lined up. He goes. He's still on Facebook. And at first I'm like, when he messaged me later at night, I was like, oh my goodness. I went up there in the morning. I helped this dude. It was a total win. And how's he on Facebook? But for some reason, this facility let him be on Facebook. And then I was like, I don't know if he should be doing this. But I wasn't attacking him like other people. Some people on his profile were like, get the fuck off Facebook, Jerry. And shit like that. Do you want to see your fucking kids? Like just some horrible stuff. And sorry to use his name, but I mean, if you know him, you already know him. If you don't, I mean, I just use his first name. So I'm like, I mean, this is ridiculous. And then I'm like, no, I'm going to start sharing like positive stuff from him. I'm going to say, do you need to like talk to somebody on the outside world? Just message me. You don't, why post this stuff up there? And I was like, do you need to put this video on here? And he's like, I'm filming a documentary. And I go, that's just a reason to like keep this video together. I have a guy that'll edit this together for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like doing all this different stuff. Some lady that was one of his friends, because he was taking video of other people that were in the facility and everything like that. It didn't seem like anything that was that intense. And people complained to get him out of that facility. People we're talking about his friends on Facebook over to the facility to complain to get him kicked out.
Cock blocking.
Was he, even being mentally ill, was he responsible for his role in that? 100%.
Yeah.
But also, you're expected that, like, people want to think, oh, he just stops posting stuff on Facebook, then he's fine. So how do you hold space for people, Corona?
Well, honestly, I try to just listen, right? It all comes with listening with an open heart and an open mind. Um, Recently, I was put in a situation where things got very violent very fast. And I'm talking about punches being thrown, right? And specifically at a man. And I don't think I've ever experienced seeing things get that violent that fast. So at first, I was really triggered, but I had to put that aside. I had to put those feelings aside because I wanted people to be safe. I had to put myself.
Is this a situation that you can talk more about?
Yeah,
Are you being
I
are you being vague for a reason?
I can keep it anonymous. I will definitely respect um the people's identities, right?
Okay.
I'll talk.
So respect the people's identities, but please like explain it a little more. It's very vague.
So how exactly do you want me to explain it? I mean, I'm basically telling you the story of how, things got very violent very fast, right? I don't have to get into the details of the situation.
Yeah, yeah, I know that's what I said. Yeah, yeah.
But, there was a lot of feelings involved, a lot of trauma and triggers involved in the situation. So it got to the point where, the water spilled over the cup, right? Like once you have so much of a certain feeling and you trigger that, like things can blow up very easily. And so that's kind of what happened. And I was present, right? I was seeing what was happening, and quickly I felt I had to kind of intervene and put myself physically, in between these two people, in order to avoid mishap, in order to avoid someone getting really hurt. And it did happen. People started bleeding at some point. And I, had to do my best to try and calm the situation down. And one of the one of the biggest motivators for me has been kind of pushing people to breathe and do breath work. Um, I did hear out. Obviously, I had to listen to. Give me one sec. Let me open the door. But basically, I had to talk to both of the individuals. It was hard to get through to one of them, because they were intoxicated. Right. Sometimes when you have certain substances in your system, it's hard to really talk to people and get through to people with messages. But I did try to kind of listen and hear them out as much as I could, and not necessarily overdo it with what I thought they could do or should do, but more so just listening to them vent and then pushing them to do breath work, right? Because things were gonna start getting really bad if I hadn't like at least physically gotten involved and told the people, hey, I need you to just chill. I need you to breathe and I need you to get away. Like stay away from the other person, and just do some healing work for yourself by via breathing. I didn't say that, right? But I did tell them and encourage them to breathe because I really was afraid that the situation was going to get worse. And it was funny because, the media is always talking about how women are the ones that are being battered and abused. And we don't really talk about how men also go through this situation, right? And this is what happened, right? It was the man who was getting sucker punched. Like his face was literally being hit. And I'd never seen that before. I mean, I'd never really experienced violence to that extent before. So for me, it was hard to see it. But I also had to kind of step back and try to help kind of keep the peace going and encourage them to just please just stay away from one another and give yourself space. Please leave if you can. Go away if you can. But if you can't, like at least go breathe.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's interesting. I'm sure for you and also the people in the audience. Have you ever just wanted to be heard? Didn't necessarily want any advice. Just wanted to be heard. Um, I probably said this several times, but not today. I used to start fights when I was like in high school and college. So I know, and I believe the universe, like, like, I mean, I was responsible for that.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying I wasn't responsible, but I think the universe put me in there to have an understanding of violence, so I could understand peace.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember one time I was just walking down the street, and two black guys on segways were almost getting in a fight with a white dude, and I just like walked, and I was just like, I just go, I can stop this by just grabbing the white dude, and I just I just grabbed him. I was like, hey dude, this isn't worth it, right there. And then he calmed down for a second. Then he got mad, and I was like, grab. It's like, I was like, dude, I know you're the type of guy. If I was in your position, you would be taking me away. And then he calmed down just like that.
Yeah. Sometimes intuition tells you, right? You have to, well, at least as an empath.
It always does. Sometimes it always does. Sometimes we hear it.
Yeah. For me, the day that this happened, I felt it in my gut. And I knew, obviously, once you have substances in your system, it's hard to get through to someone mentally, and emotions can just run at an ultimate high, especially when there's triggers and traumas involved, right? And so early on, I told the man, please, if you can, just go. Like, I will take care of this other person. Don't worry about them. They're going to be safe with me. I know you don't know me well enough, but I know you through other people, and I know that the best way to handle this situation right now prematurely is for you to go. They were very adamant. They did not listen to me. They just tried to assert masculinity, I guess you can say, and saying, I'm not going anywhere. They're going with me. I'm like, okay, like, I'm telling you, the best thing to do is go. You can come back and pick up this person, but you need to go. And so, the more time went on, the worse things got. And, it got to a point where there was blood involved. And, I was more scared because I know there's also children in the family. These people have kids. And so as someone who has foster babies in the home, my mom does foster care. I know what it's like when babies are taken away. I know what it's like to see kids, live without their parents, their biological parents, and the other traumas that come from that. So as someone who's experienced that and seen it, my best way to kind of get through to them was saying, hey, think about the babies. Don't think about yourself. Think about the little and the consequences that'll come from things getting more sour. And fortunately, at some point, things got a little better. But that was one of the biggest fears I had was, hey, like, at this point, if things get even worse, the ones that are going to suffer the consequences are the children. So please just try to keep your head on. Try to do what you think is best. And please, like, violence isn't the answer, right? Because I started seeing hyperventilation, right? Because they were starting to get so angry, and I could see anger in the face. I could see anger in the eyes, and it was scary. Like, I was, oh shit, like, am I going to get punched? Am I going to get hit for trying to calm and mediate the situation? Right? Luckily, it didn't get to that point, but that was one of the biggest concerns that I had at that point.
What did you learn about anger in that situation?
And it's interesting that you go there, right?
That's what they call me, Jedi Steve.
I always talk about, so in my life, I've always kind of used anger as a motivator. because it agitates and it gets me to do things. But sometimes anger's an energy that can go south real quick. So in that situation specifically, I learned that anger needed to be tamed, right? I learned that at that moment, that person needed to tap into compassion. They needed to tap into love. They needed to tap into the love of their children, for God's sakes, right? Because if I would have allowed the emotion of anger to overwhelm that person, like I said, God forbid, things would have gone really bad.
And using the analogy of drowning, when somebody's at that toxic level that those people were at, we all get at that. I mean, I'm not. We all get there at some way, that we just get to the way that it's way too much.
Yeah.
The analogy, somebody drowning. When a lot of times when people are drowning, they try to drown the person that's trying to save them, because their consciousness is just focused on. They're not focused on their kids. They're not focused on a lot of different stuff. And even if you bring it up, they're not going to care, because whatever's going on is so ill and so present that that's where all their focus is.
Yeah.
So I have a guy that I mentor named Kevin, and I help Kevin and a lot of his friends that were going through a lot of things when they were in college, and without ever talking about what, intuitively knowing they were going through stuff but never really talking about it, I just gave them or helped facilitate them doing a project that made them feel better about themselves, so it would just let all that other stuff go away. Because this anger and a lot of these different things, most of the different things that you do don't really define you. And the reason why I said most, because obviously you're a murderer, even if like all of a sudden you like take it out, you're still there. If you're a pedophile, it was like, oh, this guy seems fine now. I know he was a pedophile today. No, it doesn't work with fucking shit like that.
Yeah.
But Kevin asked me one time, he goes, Jedi Steve, he goes, you're a good listener. How do you listen? And of course I went into my ego saying, like, what the fuck? Like, how do I listen? Like, how selfish do you have to be to like ask, hey, listen? You should know how to listen. Like, it seems like such a basic thing. And then I started thinking about it, tapping into some humility. I was like, you know what? I'm a good listener. Like, what do I do? And I had trained myself for a while to do this, but like over years. So I hadn't really transparently put it together. So I came up with this philosophy, listening like a Jedi. So when I'm talking to somebody, especially when I'm holding space, I feel their energy coming into my heart. And then I ask myself, I just listen. And I ask myself, what am I here to learn from this person? Or what am I here to teach this person?
Yeah. Those are two good questions to ask yourself in that moment, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm feeling it mostly doing it. I was like, oh, I'm just supposed to listen. I'm just going to listen to the person. I had a situation where I could have potentially got mad when I was just like saying something that I wasn't asking the person to agree with me, but they were like being argumentative on something. An example. So when I'm driving as Lyft, if somebody cancels, I like go to that they're racist in my head. And because a lot of times those people canceled and then or the app canceled or whatever it did.
No, wait, but you still get paid though, right?
No, not please don't go into that, because that shit doesn't, that doesn't matter to me. that shit doesn't matter to me. But sometimes those rides popped up again, and then this person was like the nicest person. Sometimes the person was black. Like there's a lot of times that that wasn't true. So I told the guy, yeah, somebody canceled on me, and I had this thought. I know that it's not true, and the guy kept on saying, no, it's not like that. It's not like that. People aren't like that, bro. I've been around here a lot. I'm a Mexican dude. I look white, man. People aren't like that. And like, I'm just like, dude, man, I explained to you that I agree that it's not right for me to just like all of a sudden like say somebody's racist based on something that could have been the app, could have been the fact that the person was rushing and they didn't want to do. There could have been a lot of things. I understand that 100%. That's who I am. Like not just right now. That's who I am more consistently than like anybody I know.
Yeah.
So, but he's going, and then I could have gone. Uber has like Muslim names get canceled more. Muslim drivers get canceled more. It's a I could have gone with like those facts. Mm-hmm. Like it's a known fact. Uber has this isn't something Uber has these statistics.
Oh wow.
Lyft has these statistics. So like he was saying I don't know. And I'm saying, you don't know either. Because sometimes it is that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's like sometimes it's like, oh, this guy's a little creepy and I'm a little scared. That's okay. Like 99% of the time, I'm just like, hey, I had a lady today that I pulled up and some lady was helping her in the car, and I think she said, I don't want to go in that car. And then the other lady said, oh, she's going to stay here at the dealership for like waiting for her car for 2 hours. Mm-hmm. But I'm just like, cool. Like I would rather have her do that than get in my car and like me having to feel her fear, to be honest with you. Yeah. Or have to act like I'm driving Mr. Daisy. Oh, ma'am, how's the weather today? That's not going to get in the way of like me living my life.
Yeah.
So as you feel this energy coming in and then you give that advice, and try not, especially when somebody's drowning, to give them too much advice. Mostly listening. Try not to quit posting that shit on Facebook or whatever the case is.
But I think that's a good lesson that I think I needed to apply in that moment. And I was fortunate that there was other people around to tell me, shh, stop. Right? Because I kept trying to, at some point, give my 2 cents and be like, this is what you should do. And I mean, at the end of the day, I wasn't in that situation, right? I was just an outsider experiencing the blow up, right? And as an outsider, after listening at a certain point, I was like, hey, you should try this or that. And sometimes
so let's acknowledge you did do a good job. And what you're saying is I could have done a better job.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, you definitely did a good job. Most people will escalate situations. Mm. I've looked at every single altercation that works. Not every single altercation that I looked at online. I mean, I haven't looked at probably more than 20 as far as for Lyft drivers and Uber drivers. Every single one of the drivers escalated.
Wow.
And a lot of people are oh, the person slammed their door or whatever they do. It's like, I just don't care about that stuff. I had a guy touch my hair, and he's like touching, he grabbed my arm and he's like, do you work out? And I'm like, yep. My intuition's telling me all along. He's drunk. He's going to stop doing this like in 30 seconds. He's like, oh, is this, he goes, oh, your hair. He's like, is this your hair fake? Like he knew exactly, because he's drunk and wounded. He knew exactly what to say to me to get under my skin. But I already, as soon as he touched me, I was like, oh, okay, we just got 30 seconds. I do this, he's gonna forget about me. Like he's gonna forget about me in 30 seconds. Yeah, he's gonna find some other shiny object and focus on that. How else do you hold space for friends? You said a lot of friends are coming to you, and obviously you don't have to talk about specifics.
Well, I think an important thing is also working on yourself, right? And maybe in a sense, I think that's probably what attracts people to reach out is people realizing or knowing that you're working on yourself and there's self improvement, self betterment. Um, for some reason, I don't know why it does attract people reaching out to you and asking for your advice and trusting you that you will help at least listen to them and you know if it is that they want your advice, I'm sure sometimes they do ask and you know what, that's something like I said in future times maybe I should be asking literally, would you like me to give you my 2 cents? Because sometimes people don't want to hear your 2 cents. Sometimes people just want to unload. People just want to talk about what they're dealing with and not necessarily hear what it is that you have to say as far as how you think they should handle their situation.
And, and it and it's interesting when you ask for consent, because you
Mhm,
know you're big in consent, probably not as I mean you are definitely in that. But when you ask for consent,
mhm.
say if I ask people for their advice, they're more apt not to get mad about what the advice is. And they're more, I was like, oh shit, I consented to this. Like, even like, but if you just like start talking, then they're just like rolling their eyes and they're just not listening. But that consent kind of opens the door. And ideally, it's like, I think people should listen to me more, but also I think consent is person. I don't want to just like be telling people a bunch of stuff that they don't want to listen to, because it takes energy for me to channel into the advice for sharing for people and everything. And I'm sounding like a victim in this. I don't take it as that, or I'm not a martyr for it. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's just like yeah, it's a waste of energy to put some information out there and try and help somebody and to do that. So one of the things on for Justin, and this is kind of in the scope of that, is part of the reason why I'm more focused on, and I kind of think we're alluding that earlier. I focus on when somebody touches my hair in my car, I'm thinking of not turning this into a really big problem. I'm thinking, let this guy touch my hair for 30 seconds. I'm not all of a sudden he starts hitting me and then I got to get out of the car. We're getting in a fight and then it ends up into being a big
I have
lawsuit.
a question for you in regards to that, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
As a child, did your mother teach you to tell people not to touch your hair?
No, we were talking about this the other day. I was fine with people. I was I think they asked me for permission, but sometimes they would touch it. But I always saw it as me being unique.
That's one thing I've implemented in my child, in my son, is I've told him, hey, you don't have to let people touch your hair. People are going to want to touch your hair because you have beautiful hair. A lot of people don't have the same hair but it's okay if you don't want them to touch your hair. Please let them know. And he's pretty good about that. Like he'll tell you, please don't touch my hair. And he'll say it with a straight face.
I mean, there's a consent is like it's a new thing at the level that it's at.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they've always said don't let people touch your privates. I mean, they've always said that, but touch your arm, ask you for permission to do stuff. That wasn't a thing. I mean, a kid that would expect something like that would be yelled at.
Mm.
So providing space is like water on a consistent basis. If somebody, just like the analogy of in Arizona, if they're overwhelmed, haven't been getting much water, let's call water love. They haven't been getting much water, so their roots are showing. Whatever was happening in their life all of a sudden comes to the surface, like those roots are coming to the surface. If they get too much water, then they're collapsing. So that's why it's so good. It's so powerful for you just to provide space and to listen to them. And we can all talk about times in our lives that we felt heard. An example for me that was like a game-changing one for Joe Rogan. I've listened to him for a long time, and I was always like critical, and he bothered me to a certain level, but I enjoyed listening to him because he had a lot of people on there. And then there was one time 4 years ago when he had a retired police officer that worked in Baltimore, that he talked about how they profiled poor people and minorities for 4 hours. And then I said, I will never criticize Joe Rogan again. Do I question his things and go through that and everything? Because I felt heard. And we're talking about somebody that police see me being profiled doesn't affect me on a certain level, but as a human, I don't like it. Also, I heard that police fatalities is up 55%. Don't like that either. I'm from the One Love tribe. I consider everybody part of my family. And yes, if you are a human, you don't like some of your family members too. And I think when we feel people are part of our family, then we're going to be doing something about it. So that's the power of being heard.
Mm-hmm.
You can listen to somebody. And I believe it. I mean, I was watching a thing on the shooter at Aurora, Colorado. And I think
some of these shootings could have been avoided via conversation.
100%.
Or via talking, or via listening.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sometimes, a lot of times, things get to that point, right? To a really violent point because people aren't being heard. Because people are constantly just bottling shit up to a point where it explodes.
Yeah. And actually, so I forget his name. The guy that shot Reagan,
mm-hmm.
years before that, he was going to shoot somebody else. And an old lady came up to him and touched his arm, asking him for the time or something like that. And just that human connection kept him from doing it.
Oh, wow.
And that's the power that every woman has and every man has. That power of just that touch. But also, I mean, ask for consent before you do it. I guess if you're your old lady, you can just grab people's arm. But no, because old ladies are, I mean, we got to admit for some things. I mean, old ladies could just walk up to a child and touch their head. I mean, more so than I could. We gotta like acknowledge some of those things are not necessarily bad, but a little iffy.
Yeah. There's something about the motherly presence, I guess, then, right?
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm not comfortable with that. Like I'll look at kids and let's just be like making weird facial expressions from them and everything like that. I'm comfortable with that. That's all I need to do. I remember one point that I was at the Starbucks at San Diego State, and where I was holding space for lots of students. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are students that used to just come in the morning to sit by me and couldn't even talk to me. And I know that because I experienced it. If I didn't experience it, I wouldn't believe it. And I forgot what I was going to say about holding space. So it's like that energy of like just like being there, and that stress reduction can be just so powerful for people. Do you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I don't. Breath work. Just that. Breath work's important. Breath work matters.
And breathing with people.
Yeah. Breath work matters. And I think a key tool is using sound baths, using YouTube meditation videos. Especially if you don't know where to start with meditation, those can be a really useful tool to use. And sometimes getting away, right? Going into nature, going somewhere that's less populated and more secluded, right? Just so that you can be alone with your own thoughts and really breathe it through and not be distracted with other noises and other people. So at least that's one of the things that I do. I like to go on hikes, and when I'm at the top of the mountain, that's typically where I like to put some YouTube videos, and sometimes just listening to the birds in nature, listening to the sounds of the wind. And I've noticed that I'm more hypersensitive to the sounds of nature when I am by myself and up top at the top of the mountain, versus when I'm, surrounded by other people. I'm more attuned to what people have to say, or some of the sounds that they bring with them, noise pollution, that kind of thing. So yeah. If y'all have singing bowls, that's a good one too.
And YouTube videos. One of the things about singing bowls and YouTube videos, before the internet, they would have seminars on sound healing. And you would go to these seminars, and at the end of the seminar, you'd pay like $5,000
Jesus
for the sound healing stuff that you can get for free on YouTube.
Yeah.
Now.
If y'all have the ability to go to one of our cannabis wellness parties, I definitely recommend them. Sometimes we do meditations in the group, stuff like that. So you look for your crew, look for your team.
And we do cannabis.
And we do cannabis, which is always a perk, right?
And trust me, even when we're not meditating, we're meditating. We're pushing through a lot of stuff, just sitting there talking about stuff, being heard. Everybody's heard. So, thank you very much.
Likewise.
Now I want to end with one thing.
Go for it.
So, I came up with this thing because sometimes I get home from work and I would want to drink a Coca-Cola. And what I started doing is I started drinking just one of these size things of water before I drank the Coca-Cola.
Smart move.
And what I learned from this, it made me drink it a lot faster. And what I learned from this is like I didn't have the craving for the Coke most of the time. And even like usually it would last for days. I wouldn't have the craving for the Coca-Cola. And holding space is the same way. So self-care is holding space for yourself. So when we're out in nature and we're doing a lot of this stuff, we don't have whatever's angering, that rage and everything that makes so much sense to us, and it doesn't exist out there. I'm sure people are getting in arguments and everything back in nature and everything like that because they're taking whatever that is inside of them with them. But when you get into that place of holding space and being present and everything, you just don't have the urge to do those toxic things. Just the water.
Be like water.
Like Bruce Lee would say, be water, my friends.
Peace.
Thank you, everybody. Peace.